Legendary rocker Joe Walsh, whose soulful performances have captivated audiences for decades, has revealed something that will surprise us. After decades of musical success and an unpredictable career, Walsh, now 78, has revealed a secret. What could he confess? Let's find out a secret that could change your perception of him forever. Early life and musical beginnings. On the 20th of November, 1947, Joseph Fiddler Walsh, better known by his nickname Joe Walsh, was born in the city of Wichita, Kansas, in the United States of America. Music had always been an important part of his life, especially considering that his mother had a foundation in classical piano technique. Joe and his mother had a nomadic lifestyle for a while after his father passed away in an aircraft accident when he was still a child. After that, they decided to permanently relocate to Montclair, which is located in the state of New Jersey. It is the place where Walsh finished his high school education and began to be actively involved in the music industry. At the early age of 10, he began the voyage of playing the guitar, and shortly after that, he fell in love with rock music. He was particularly influenced by the Ventures, the Beatles, and some other musicians who were comparable to them. Even when he was still in school, it was clear that he had a deep appreciation for music. This was obvious from a very young age. When Walsh was a student at Montclair High School, he participated in the school band and played the oboe. However, the electric guitar was the instrument that he was most interested in playing. In the time leading up to her enrollment at Kent State University, Walsh was already actively participating in several local bands, polishing his craft, and establishing her name in the Ohio music business. When he was at Kent State, he began to take into consideration the possibility of pursuing a career in singing since, in contrast to classroom teaching, performance came to him more naturally and spontaneously. Due to the horrific shooting incident that occurred at Kent State University in 1970, Walsh's early life would go on to become a significant turning point. Although Walsh was still a student at the time, the event had a significant influence on him and continued to be a defining experience throughout his whole life. It was especially when he realized that one's life was too short to not chase one's heart that he decided to resign from the university course and devote himself entirely to music. This decision, on the other hand, would prove to be the beginning of a great career path that would eventually lead him to attain rock stardom in some capacity. Following his departure from Kent State, Walsh was a member of a local band known as the James Gang for a brief time. This band was responsible for introducing him to a larger audience. It didn't take long for his explosive guitar playing and unique technique to garner the attention of both followers and reviewers. With the release of Funk No. 49, which was one of the band's blockbusters, Walsh demonstrated that he was not just a guitarist but also a singer of the highest caliber, and his contributions have been firmly established in the world of music. That event marked the beginning of what would go on to become one of the most remarkable journeys in the history of rock and roll from the very beginning. On the other hand, just as Walsh's musical journey was beginning to take form, a turn of events would thrust him into the national limelight sooner than he could have ever expected. The James Gang and early success. Joe Walsh's important breakthrough occurred in 1968 when he was recruited into the James Gang, a struggling rock band from Cleveland. This was the year when Walsh experienced his breakthrough. His presence brought with it a new spirit and sound that was almost ready to propel the band into the spotlight after it had been in the background for a while. Walsh's innovative guitar-playing technique, which combined elements of a variety of musical styles such as rock, blues, and funk into a single remarkable skill, was largely responsible for the band's rise to prominence. Soon enough, the band began to gain popularity, and their smash song Funk No. 49 became a breakthrough record that showcased Walsh's outstanding guitar technique and distinctive range. Taking things a step further, the James Gang is perhaps more effective than its parts because of the intensity and uniqueness of Walsh's guitar performance. He became a dominant force in the business thanks to the innovative riffs he played and the sheer might he brought to the stage for performances. The band's second album, which was named James Gang Rides Again and was published, was likewise highly received both critically and commercially, which ensured that the band would have a place in the annals of rock history. Walsh's talents, which justifiably gained him the reputation of being a master of the guitar among his fellow musicians, were also displayed in songs such as Walk Away and The Bomber. Even though Walsh's involvement in the James Gang was just for a brief period, it had a significant influence. In the 1970s, several guitar-heavy rock bands emerged, and the band's decision to incorporate hard rock and blues into their repertoire was a significant factor in their development. Additionally, Walsh was responsible for the creation of inventive sound effects, which not only contributed to the growth of rock music but also assisted other rock guitarists in incorporating a wider spectrum of sound instruments. After a few amount of time, Walsh made it very clear that he was a rock star. He soon realized that an image that was appropriate for the James Gang began to make him feel inadequate, and he eagerly anticipated future opportunities that were more substantial. After having achieved a significant level of fame in the James Gang up until this point, Walsh decided in 1972 to leave the band and pursue other musical endeavors. He did this to pursue different musical possibilities. This event not only marked a significant turning point in the history of the band, but it also marked the beginning of a solo career that would go on to be extremely successful. The things that he did when he was a member of the James Gang served as a foundation for all that came after it. This period with the group continues to be an essential component of his musical legacy, and it is still cherished by his fans to this day. The beginning of Barnstorm's existence. Joe Walsh was just the contrary after he left the James Gang in 1972. He was seeking new challenges and a change in sound. He was also looking for a fresh musical direction. When it came to this matter, Walsh moved on to join Barnstorm, a band that featured Joe Vitale, a drummer who was a classmate of his, and Kenny Passarelli, a bass guitarist. In addition to being a continuation of Walsh's earlier work, Barnstorm served as a platform for the artist to experiment with a variety of musical styles, including rock, folk music, jazz, and even Caribbean influence throughout its creation. The band's first album, Barnstorm, which was released in 1972, turned out to be a pivotal moment in Walsh's musical career. It was at this time that he was able to demonstrate his abilities as a guitarist and a composer, as well as wielding a significant amount of control over the artistic aspects of the music. Barnstorm did not attain the commercial success that the majority of people anticipated it would have, even though it received positive reviews. The record rapidly became a popular work among both fans and artists alike, and this was largely due to Walsh's respect for artistic progress and risk-taking, which is characteristic of his work. Some of the tracks that can be heard on the album, such as Turn to Stone and Mother Says, are examples of Walsh's witty writing and guitar work, which served as a fresh harbinger for the evolution of his career. There was no doubt about it. Barnstorm was not merely a group of musicians playing music. For Walsh, it was a way to express his creative side and a vehicle through which he could expand the boundaries of all the pre-existing notions of music. Along with capturing the curiosity of other artists, Walsh's collaboration with the Barnstorm also captivated the attention of other musicians, some of whom, including members of the Eagles, would eventually join him. Rocky Mountain Way, the band's popular single, was a significant element of the band's second album, which was released in 1973 and was titled The Smoker You Drink, The Player You Get. This album was a turning point for the band. This music not only became a permanent fixture in the set of the musician, but it also became Walsh's first significant solo hit. It was vital in the success of the show. Both the slide guitar theme and the laid-back atmosphere of the song were examples of pivotal moments in Walsh's career that led to the commencement of his career as a solo artist. Although the final days of Barnstorm were in 1974, it was the time that he spent with the band that proved to be the most significant in restoring his current trajectory. His time spent with Barnstorm provided him with the opportunity to develop his creativity and independence, which ultimately prepared him for even higher heights in the years that followed, notably with the Eagles. It is possible that the tenure of the band was short, but it was sufficient for Walsh to regain his self-assurance and the creative impulses that were necessary for him to seek further advancement in his profession. In this time period, he was able to properly master his art and establish his position as a significant figure in the history of rock music. Joining the Eagles, the game changer. When Joe Walsh joined the Eagles in 1975, he hit a high point in his career. At the time, the Eagles were one of the most successful and well-known rock bands of the 1970s. Walsh's decision to join the Eagles was a significant moment in his career. It was a critical moment for him to join the band, since one of its founders, Bernie Lydon, had recently left the band, and the band was going to shift its country rock music inclinations to a more heavier and guitar-oriented style. His joining the band occurred at a time when the band was moving toward this transformation. There was no reason to not go with Walsh. The dynamics of the band were entirely transformed as a result of his aggressive performance attitude, outstanding talents when it comes to the guitar, and a sense of nuances. Not only was this a significant achievement for the Eagles, but it was also a significant milestone for Walsh, as it launched him into immense stardom on a global scale. It wasn't until after the Eagles released their album Hotel California in 1976 that Walsh became a member of the band. This album is widely regarded as one of the most successful recordings ever sold. His contribution to this project, particularly the well-known guitar duel that he performed with Don Felder on the title track, is among the most well-known guitar solos in the history of rock music. The guitar part on Hotel California was a demonstration of Walsh's abilities, and also gained him a seat in the band with the band. This was the moment that would prove to be the defining moment that would forever be associated with him throughout his whole existence. There is one song that stands out among the many songs that Walsh has contributed to the Eagles, and that is Life in the Fast Lane. Walsh claimed that the song was inspired by a riff that he strummed when he was practicing. It was a representation that was entirely appropriate for the band's new and more dramatic identity, which was defined by a rock and roll attitude and an edgy sound. As a result of Walsh's powerful, clear, and expressive guitar playing on the song, the Eagles were able to transcend from their relatively mild, folk-inclined beginnings to a more aggressive rock territory. It was because of his membership in the band that they were able to improve the quality of their music, and also because he was essential in helping them reach a broader audience. Even though he is a member of the Eagles, Walsh is not solely a guitarist. He brought with him a spirit that was both singular and daring, which played a significant role in their development as stadium rock megastars by contributing to their maturation. The close relationship that developed between Walsh and the other members of the band, notably Glenn Frey and Don Henley, was the driving force behind the band's accomplishments in terms of creativity. Before Walsh joined the Eagles, the band had already achieved a great deal of success, but his presence catapulted them to an even higher level of prominence in the rock music industry. It is also likely that the time he spent with the band later on would be regarded as the most formative and lucrative era of his career. This is the rock star hymn known as Life's Been Good. In 1978, Joe Walsh produced an album titled But Seriously Folks, which included the song Life's Been Good, which is considered to be one of his most memorable songs. Not only did the song have an earworm melody, but it also included a somewhat humorous rock star, which were both factors that contributed to the song's enormous appeal among listeners. Using the song, Walsh provided an open and very amusing portrayal of himself, as well as the absurdities that are associated with being a renowned person. This is one of Walsh's career-defining hits in terms of the subject matter it tackles, and that's why it's so successful. The paradoxes inherent in the life of a rock star are humorously brought to light in the film Life's Been Good. The fact that Walsh is such a phenomenon that he doesn't even know how much his tickets cost. He also claims to live in lavish mansions and expensive cars. Even though he's smiling, there's a sense of loneliness. In a calm tone, he shares how lucky he is to be alive and how he's noticed how everyone around him has changed, except for me. The song offers a subtle blend of humorous commentary on pop culture and a no-holds-barred look at fame, delving into the personal impact of fame in detail. Life's Been Good is a prime example of Walsh's unique musical style, from his soulful vocals to his superb guitar playing. Throughout the song, there are extended pauses, especially on the slide guitar, that showcase Walsh's sense of humor as well as his talent. Combining the over-the-top lyrics with the song's gentle, slow tempo results in a song that celebrates both the fun and humor of the rock and roll lifestyle. The song is a perfect example of how rock and roll fans can love both aspects of their lifestyle. This is the kind of music that invites you into its house of cards, but at the same time, it never stops being a house of cards in itself. It has become a focal point for anyone interested in understanding the life of a rock star, and as a result, Life's Been Good has remained a popular single throughout its existence. This song, which mocks the excesses common in the modern rock and roll lifestyle, is a true classic because it speaks to what most people consider the current rock and roll lifestyle. However, according to Walsh, these were not just the words of a guitar legend, although he was a guitar legend, and these comments were not just about rock music. Behind all the glitz and glamour, even a rock star like Joe Walsh had his fair share of struggles, including his battle with addiction. For much of his early career, Walsh was not only an electric guitarist but also struggled to find balance in his life. Given the fact that most, if not all, members of the rock and roll culture at the time were regularly dealing with such addictions, this is what led to this. While the performer was known for being both controversial and entertaining, the reality is that his addictions certainly took a toll on both his personal life and his health. Sadly, Walsh's greatest fame did not coincide with the beginning of his problems, which were always present, a significant number of which were present, and at one point, they became too much for him to bear. During interviews, Walsh revealed that a significant part of his life, especially in those years, was affected by the challenges associated with them. Walsh's partying habits were so well known that they became a legendary part of his career, although he was going through some tough times at the time. His long parties and uncontrolled lifestyle took a toll on both his work and his personal life, causing him to face many challenges in his career and life. Walsh's mental and physical health continued to deteriorate over time. The breakthrough came in 1994, when Walsh was traveling to Paris and suddenly had an epiphany. This was the moment that changed everything. The realization that things were spiraling out of control with the way Walsh was living his life came to him after he passed out while traveling and could not figure out how he had gotten to his destination any other way. What followed was a very difficult experience for him, and he had to go through it as a wake-up call. Walsh was able to recover and began the process of putting the pieces of his life back together with the support of friends, family, and professionals. Driven by a strong urge to regain control of his life and do his job properly, Walsh decided to abstain from alcohol. This was not an easy task, requiring willpower and relentless perseverance. After successfully recovering from his addiction, Walsh took on the role of a recovery activist and regularly shared his experiences to support those struggling like him. Additionally, he has publicly confessed that his ability to stay sober for long periods was key to his life, as it allowed him to focus on his music, which in turn helped him have better days. At the heart of this effort was finding himself and finding a way to move forward. To this day, he remains the absolute definition of strength and serves as a reminder that behind every seemingly perfect existence, there is often an internal conflict. When the Eagles broke up and reunited. By the time the 1970s came to a close, the popular band The Eagles had reached the height of their fame. However, problems within the group began to emerge. Both the pressure of maintaining the popularity of great albums like Hotel California and the burden of constant touring and recording began to take their toll on the band members. Hotel California was one of the most successful albums. For the most part, Joe Walsh was able to go with the flow, but as tensions grew between members Arch Don Henley and Glenn Frey, Walsh often found himself in the position of playing the role of peacemaker. After lengthy recording sessions for their next album, the band broke up in 1980. Given that personal and business relationships had been strained for a considerable period, the breakup was not an amicable departure. In Walsh's opinion, the dissolution of the Eagles was an opportunity for which he was grateful, even though it required him to put all his other activities on hold. Although it was defined by that relationship, the Eagles' history has not yet reached its final chapter. It was believed that a reformation would occur during the 1980s and early 1990s. However, barriers were broken when country singer Travis Tritt featured the Eagles in the music video for the song Take It Easy. In 1994, after 14 years of inactivity, the Eagles reunited for the Hell Freezes Over tour. The tour was named after an old saying that the band would only get back together. Even this relatively insignificant tour led to talk of reconciliation. Certainly, the gathering is deserving of jubilant praise for its accomplishments. As a result of the band's ability to successfully fill arenas with hungry fans who had been waiting for them to perform live after a hiatus of more than 10 years, the Hell Freezes Over tour was very successful and had immense popularity. Walsh's guitar playing was as ferocious as it had ever been, and he and the other members of the band had once again discovered the chemistry that they had been looking for. The tour also resulted in the production of a live album, which was given the title Hell Freezes Over 2. This album featured several live performances in addition to 4 new tracks that were recorded in the studio. Get Over It and Love Will Keep Us Alive were 2 of the songs that helped assure that the craze that the Eagles had in the 1970s would not be forgotten for a very long time. For Walsh, the reunion of the Eagles was both redemptive and redemptory, at least insofar as the desire to build long-lasting ties inside the band was concerned. The time that was spent apart allowed for some degree of healing to occur amongst the members of the band, and Walsh's recovery made it possible for him to be reunited with his band on a new level. The reunion was not only beneficial for the Eagles in terms of achieving their goals, but it also provided Walsh with the opportunity to revel in the grandeur of the band, but this time with a greater sense of appreciation. The band, on the other hand, continued to tour and release new works, which demonstrated that their legacy as rock icons had not yet been completely established. Personal life and tragedy. For many reasons, Joe Walsh's life cannot be considered a complete and total success. There were moments of joy as well as moments of deep sadness, and each of these experiences benefited him musically and professionally. Walsh was married 5 times throughout his life, each of which represented a distinct period in his life, including the challenges he faced along the way. Currently, the artist is married to Marjorie Bach, the sister of actress Barbara Bach and sister-in-law of Ringo Starr. She has provided him with comfort and stability over the years, especially since he has been sober since the mid-1990s. Walsh has always been quite sensitive and thoughtful, and this has been reflected in his work. Although he has always presented himself as a rock star with a flashy image, the loss of Walsh's first daughter Emma in 1974 was one of the most heartbreaking events Walsh experienced in his life. It was a personal and professional blow to Walsh when his daughter, Emma, who was 3 years old at the time, was killed in a car accident. Her passing inspired him to write the emotional Song for Emma, which appeared on his album So What? Because Walsh was able to express his more sensitive side, where he expressed the depth of his grief as a father who lost a child, this song is a notable exception. Walsh has shared that the pain of this loss left an indelible mark on his life and was one of the reasons he sought ways to ease the pain, which had a significant impact on his family relationships and even his marriage. He also faced another heartbreak when his sister-in-law, Susan Walsh, went missing in 1996 and has never been heard from again. However, Walsh was always able to find solace and move on with his life, and he was able to draw on his sadness most of the time. One of the most striking features of his career is his ability to turn adversity into something creative and meaningful. This helps his audience connect with him on a deeper emotional level. Despite this, Walsh was not crushed by the loss and regret he experienced. On the contrary, they found solace in his music, his family, and his battle with addiction. Additionally, his daughter Lucy, born from a previous marriage, also showed an interest in music and is now a recognized professional musician. Even though Walsh's relationships with women were difficult, he ultimately chose to resist love rather than give up. When he reflects on the happiness and love he discovered in his later years, he thinks of Emma and others. Their life stories show their courage and how they overcame the obstacles they faced. Volunteering and political activism. In addition to his remarkable music career, Joe Walsh has devoted much of his time and energy to many charitable and advocacy activities. He has done so to ensure that the fame he has achieved as a musician is put to better use for the many causes he is passionate about. He takes the cause of supporting veterans very seriously, which is one of the key areas he focuses on. In 2017, Walsh founded VetsAid, a charity with a mission to support fundraising for veterans and the families of those who have served in the military. VetsAid has sponsored benefit concerts featuring famous singers as a tribute to Willie Nelson's involvement in supporting agriculture. These concerts have raised millions of dollars to fund the organization's services to veterans, including healthcare and housing. Walsh's family's military history can be traced back to his commitment to veterans. When Walsh was a young man, his father, a pilot in the United States Air Force, died while he was serving in the military. This is the foundation on which Walsh's commitment to veterans was built. In addition to Walsh's many interests and skills, he is also a passionate advocate for environmental protection. For many years, Walsh served as president of the Santa Cruz Island Foundation, a nonprofit organization that works to protect the island located off the coast of Santa Barbara and commonly known as Santa Cruz. The organization's mandate includes preserving the island's unique ecosystem, as well as its fauna and historic sites. Walsh is an environmentalist, and his concern for the environment is not a hobby. Rather, it is a significant challenge that he has taken on. He is using his time and money to preserve one of California's natural wonders for future generations. Another cause Walsh supports is education, especially because of its view of the need for long-term investment in the arts. He previously played a key role in establishing a scholarship fund at Kent State University, where he studied He has even successfully funded scholarships for students interested in pursuing careers in art and music. Walsh recognizes the need to support young people who are creatively inclined. He has been involved in activities to ensure that young students, who he knows may feel lost but are passionate about music and creativity, are provided with the same opportunities he has. He has a strong belief in the transformative power of the arts, and his passion for education goes hand in hand. Walsh's philanthropic work is not limited to large corporations. He also regularly supports local people. His experience includes working at homeless shelters for women and providing confidential support to other organizations that work with people struggling with addiction. He has had his struggles with addiction in the past, and for this reason, Walsh is willing to support anyone who is trying to overcome it, both financially and by sharing his recovery experiences. The charity work he does is a testament to his belief that he should use his platform for the common good, thus making a difference in the lives of people who are not involved in the rock and roll industry. However, there is something deeper that Walsh has kept hidden for a considerable amount of time, despite all the good he has done and the legendary music he has given us. This is the conclusive explanation that we all suspect. Joe Walsh has finally addressed something that fans have theorized for a very long time but never really proven. This is after years of speculation and conjecture on the matter. Over time, Walsh has developed an upbeat, funny, and often unconventional personality that has earned him the admiration of others. However, what never ceases to amaze is his true inspiration, although a significant part of it seems to be embodied in the rock and roll image. At 76, Walsh has now come out and revealed the truth, something many have suspected for a considerable amount of time, but never really understood in its entirety. What he felt in the music scene, that he felt uncomfortable and like an outsider, was the complete opposite of what he portrayed. Walsh asserted that even as he was achieving great success, he still occasionally cared about the people around him, even when he was in the Eagles. What he presented to the outside world was a picture of a rock and roll dream, but behind that were personal desires. However, he still faced a deep insecurity about his abilities and influence, which he believed were far superior to those of others in the rock industry. This internal conflict contributed greatly to the hardships he experienced, including emotional and health problems. Perhaps many fans saw Walsh as a role model of the rock and roll lifestyle, unaware of the fact that he felt helpless for a long time. Eventually, he realized that overcoming mental challenges was not just a battle. Walsh later revealed that the more humorous and satirical aspects of his songs, such as those found in the popular song "Life's Been Good," were attempts to address the absurdity of fame and his inner tensions. The song seems lighthearted about being a rock star, which many believe is actually about Walsh's dissonance with his image as a rock star and his struggles. In other words, music was an aspect of Walsh's life that allowed him to communicate his shortcomings to the public. It was clear that Walsh presented a clearer image to his audience than that of a rock star by finally opening up to them about what he had been through. The perspective of a human being who had lived his life and gone through certain challenges. Additionally, this discovery adds to his legacy by proving that there is always more to the man responsible for famous guitar riffs and absurd stories. And that's all there is to it. Let us know what you think of this video and share your opinions in the comments section below. Make sure you don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on the latest celebrity news. We appreciate you watching and hope to see you again soon.